friend of mine gave me a beautiful Spurgeon study Bible, and so I opened it up to 1 Corinthians 11, and also on my computer here, which you can't see, I have King James Version open. So I began to read, and in the Spurgeon Bible it says, "Now I praise you because you remembered me in everything and hold fast to the traditions, just as I have delivered them to you. But I want you to know that Christ is the head of every man, and that the man is the head of the woman, and God is the head of Christ. Every man who prays or prophesies with something on his head dishonors his head. Every woman who prays or prophesies with her head uncovered dishonors her head, since that is one and the same as having her head shaved. For if a woman doesn't cover her head, she should have her hair cut off. But if it is disgraceful for a woman to have her hair cut off or her head shaved, let her head be covered. A man should not cover his head because he is the image and the glory of God. So too, woman is the glory of man. For man did not come from the woman, but woman came from man. Neither was man created for the sake of the woman, but the woman for the sake of the man. This is why a woman should have a symbol of authority over her head because of the angels. In the Lord, however, women is not independent upon men, and men is not independent of women. For just as women came from man, so man comes from the woman, and all things come from God. Judge yourselves. Is it proper for a woman to pray to God with her head uncovered? Does not even nature teach you that if a man has long hair, it is a disgrace to him? But if a woman has long hair, it is her glory, for her hair is given to her as a covering. And if anyone wants to argue about this, we have no other custom, no, nor do the churches of God." I think it's rather interesting that Paul started off with this phrase in the Old Testament, in the King James: "Be you followers of me, even as I also of Christ." And verse number 2 says, "I praise you, brethren, that you remember me in all things, and keep the ordinances as I delivered them to you. But I would have you to know that the head of every man is Christ, and that the head of the woman is man, and the head of Christ is God." You know, we've built quite a doctrine out of this phrase that the head is, and what the head is. And I did a little research, and I discovered that a couple of things. One is that another meaning for the word head is the word origination or source. You see, the Hebrew, when it was translated to Greek, translated a word which I probably can't say is helkep, which is the word for origin. The Greek word is for rulership, authority, and headship is the word archives. Would that be interesting to understand that what he says here is, but I would have you know that the source that the origin of every man is Christ, and that the origin or the source or origination of the woman is the man, because she was taken from the man's side. And then it says the origin or the source of Christ is God. Every man praying or prophesying, having his source or origination covered, discovered, dishonors his head. So this to me says that every man praying or prophesying, having his source and origination covered or hidden, dishonoreth his head, which is Christ. Every man praying or prophesying, having his origination covered, dishonored Christ. But every woman that prayeth or prophesied with her head uncovered, her head, for even one, let's try it again, for every woman that prayeth or prophesied with her head uncovered, dishonoreth her head. So every woman that prays or prophesies and reveals that the word and prayer that she's praying is coming from her uncovered head, which it says here is man, because that is her origination. If a woman gives her prayer and prophecy under the authority of man, then he will be dishonored. But if a woman would pray and honor the origination or the source of her beginning, which is Christ, then and only then is she authorized to be covered, because her head would be dishonored. Her husband or the man would be dishonored if her prophecy and her prayer were covered by her husband. But when she takes the covering of her husband off and she becomes covered by Christ, then her words, her prayer and her prophecy becomes the word and the prophecy of God and not of man. For if a woman be not covered, let her also be shorn. But if it be a shame for a woman to be shorn or shaved, let her be covered. In other words, Paul was saying, is this if you believe that a woman can't prophesy or pray without the covering of her husband, then let her be covered. But if you think it's a shame that she ministers, then let her be covered by her husband. But the next verse says, for a man indeed ought not cover his head. In other words, he should not hide. He should not hide that his prayer and prophecies are being generated by the Spirit of God, which is his source and his origination. For inasmuch as he is the image and the glory of God, but the woman is the glory of man. If you believe that God, that the woman's glory comes from being originated from man, then she must be covered. For the man is not of the woman, but the woman of the man. Neither was the man created for the woman, but the woman for the man. For this cause ought women to have power on their head, because of the angels. Nevertheless, neither is the man without the woman, neither is the woman without the man in the Lord. In other words, in other words, the coverings of man and woman are under the Lord. See, we we allow ourselves we allow ourselves to come up with ideas that just because just because the traditions and the teachings of Paul and the church were the direct were the direct instructions of God. Paul was a human, and even in our lives, we do not hear uh, verbatim everything that we do by the instruction of the Lord, but that we do this by conscience. It says in verse 13, judge in yourself if it is comely that a woman pray unto God uncovered. In other words, if you want to believe the traditions of man, that woman can't that woman cannot participate, cannot pray, cannot um, cannot prophesy without mentioning the authority of her husband, then then she can't pray uncovered. Then it says, do not even nature itself teach you that if a man have long hair, it is a shame unto him? That's a question. That's not a statement. He's asking, do you believe that? That's the same thing he asked about. Is it comely that a woman pray uncovered? Do you believe that? But if a woman have long hair, it is a glory to her, for her hair is given her for a covering. That's her hair has nothing to do with the covering. The covering is the authority and the origination that God created for her to be born and to be created. Has nothing to do with hair. And if any man seem to be contentious, we have no such custom, neither the churches of Christ. In other words, if it's an argument, if it creates an argument about long hair or coverings and whatever, then and that's a custom of the church. And if it's contentious, then then the church shouldn't have any. It shouldn't have any customs, because if any custom that is in the church causes contention, then it shouldn't be in the church.